there are people, regardless of how old or young they are, who nurture and keep a sort of a perpetual flame, like the flame at JFK's tomb. It's like this constant memorial, this constant remembrance of who they wanted to be, who they could have been, who they should have been, how it should have turned out, and how it still can turn out if they just make the right decisions. And for those people, they have to get away from here because there's nothing here that feeds those possibilities.
Right.
So they have to flee to another place. Nurturing a vision of who you can become or who you ought to be or who I should have been and whatever, it actually acts as a goad to drag you around through, and it would be the ego keeping you away from experiencing the light of what is there right now.
Right.
It's a mystery of why the soul or the light or the Christ within seeks out experiences by nurturing that goad, and therefore that person is dragged like a firefly from one situation to another, and they don't know why, and they can't stop themselves.
Yeah. This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Today's reading is from Chapter 21, Reason and Perception, and we're reading from Section 4, The Fear to Look Within. The Holy Spirit will never teach you that you are sinful. Errors he will correct, but this makes no one fearful. You are indeed afraid to look within and see the sin you think is there. This you would not be fearful to admit. Fear in association with sin the ego deems quite appropriate and smiles approvingly. It has no fear to let you feel ashamed. It doubts not your belief and faith in sin. Its temples do not shake because of this. Your faith that sin is there but witnesses to your desire that it be there to see. This merely seems to be the source of fear. So, we're afraid to look within. We're afraid to look on what we think. The ego goes, oh, yeah. Well, you don't want to look there because, there's sin in there. Lots of not nice things to look at. Isn't that what you get out of that first paragraph? And it smiles approvingly that you're afraid to look at it because it works with us. It wants to make sure that we stay afraid to look there. Don't look there. Don't look behind that closet door.
I'm hesitating because my own experience is that I'm not afraid to look within. It's more like I'm bored. It's like I don't really want to look within. It's not. It's a lot easier, obviously, to just look around me or to listen to things coming in, to feed my head, to feed my eyes. It's just a lot easier, and it feels more natural to me. And so, if we sit down, let's say, and do one of the lessons, and it says turn within and all this kind of thing, it's like. I don't know, it's a little bit like closing your eyes. What do you see? Well, nothing. It's kind of reddish black.
Right.
Right.
Well, there's that. And then I've known people, if they had no meditation practice at all, or any time that they're actually just quiet, because it's really easy, in this day and age, it's really easy to have some kind of input at all times. And if they're home alone and the lights go out or whatever and there's no power, they are afraid. It's like they're afraid of, I don't know, not something they can't name. I don't know. I can't remember. I've had a meditation practice now of some sort where I can be sitting quiet. And a lot of times I still have a noisy brain, to get it to be real quiet is still difficult. But I'm not afraid to be alone. And I think that a lot of people are afraid of what they might find out about themselves if they're left with their own thoughts even. I know that's not really looking within, but
Well,
it
I
has...
used to, when I would work, when I was doing drawings, when I first got started especially, I kept a TV set in front of me. And I'd be drawing at 2 or 3 in the morning. And the test pattern would come on, and then the Star Spangled Banner, and then the TV would just shut down. And there was nothing but snow. I used to like that transition from the Star Spangled Banner to, I think, the test pattern with the Indian on it and the circles, and then it would just go to snow and just sit there and just, and then sometimes I would look at the snow just to wonder what was there, and I would stare at the snow on the TV set, and I would see armies marching across it diagonally from the lower right to the upper left. And I almost could hear their boots marching. So I decided that I was projecting that onto the TV set and that no such thing was there. And that my mind was just trying to organize the static hum. Now, when I turned off the TV finally, after the static experiment or whatever, and I would just turn it off, and this happens a lot, to different people when you're sitting there watching TV and you're not really aware, and you're, back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
You watch 6 hours of TV and then you turn it off, and it's like,
yeah.
It's like,
I know.
It's disturbing how quietness, it's almost like you've cut the umbilical cord to reality.
Yes.
It's like you've cut it, and things aren't coming in anymore.
I know that's not like looking in at sin, which that's why the ego says don't look there and everything else. I would say that most people experience it more like they just don't want to be alone with their own thoughts, and yet the ego doesn't mind that because it knows that our thoughts are mostly not nice about ourselves.
What I'm trying to get at is the Course, again and again, as it does, it gives me a lot of reasons why I might not want to look inside.
Yeah.
And what I'm afraid of finding, and then it blows the cover and says, in fact, you're not afraid that you're going to find all the dirt. You're afraid that you're not going to see any dirt. That's your problem.
Right.
Okay, it tells you that kind of stuff. And I'm just saying my pedestrian experience here, walking around in the reality, is what I said about the TV set and the snow and the marching across. That is generally my experience. And my argument with everything in the Course in Miracles is that all of these are indicators of what that's about. In other words, if I have an experience of when I look inside, I kind of look and I get bored, or I go to sleep, or my mind wanders, it distracts, it starts looking for different things to fidget around with. Those are all, I'm going to have to say that those have to be defenses against even finding a fear of looking within. Those are defenses against the fear itself. And so the Course is jumping over all those, assuming that I've managed to get to the great moment where I have some fear of looking within.
Right.
You don't have fear of looking within. I don't know that most people do have fear of looking within. Yet, I want to tell you one little experience I had. We were doing Dances of World Peace. This happened twice. Well, actually, one time, but it happened with 2 different women in each case, mainly because I'm homophobic. I don't stare deeply into men's eyes, But we were doing Dances of Universal Peace.
Yes, I've done this. Yeah.
What did I call it?
I don't know.
Anyway, Dances of Universal Peace, which is kind of a Sufi knockoff.
Yes.
And I looked into someone's eyes, this lady that I knew, and I was shocked. looking into her eyes. I was shocked because what I saw was a panicked, frightened animal. It's what I saw. It looked, this person who's very self-assured, very outgoing, and positive about things, I was actually surprised to see this, a kind of a quivering animal in the corner, like afraid of that level of intimacy.
Right. Yeah. So what? How does that relate to looking within?
I'm just saying that there's I'm talking about looking.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the insides. And and I'm trying to, because the Course, once, as I said, it's jumping ahead. It's jumping ahead to a point of where you feel fear to look within. Oh, really? No, nobody writes that in their diary. Once again, today, I felt terror. We don't say that.
Right.
And so I have to make sense out of what it's saying so that I do not I don't have cognitive dissonance where the Course is making up crap that makes no sense.
Right. Well, I'm gonna say, it says here, it has no fear to let you feel ashamed. So I'm just gonna sort of say that when I was younger and everything else, something had happened where I did have some shame. And in the night, I would wake up afraid of being punished, afraid of something. And I just was wrought with fear. And I prayed for forgiveness to Jesus over and over. I was young. I was less than 10 years old. I was young. And I am just afraid. And it doesn't go away. That, I think, is what is like so you're all alone and everything else, and you're in with your own thoughts at those wee hours in the middle of the night. And I would say that that's what it's referring to. Those kinds of thoughts, the ego is more than happy to sit with and say, see, you are just not a good person.
But as a signal, that's actually, maybe I'm being contrarian, but it seems like a good thing to look within and feel fear, to feel fear, because it means you're looking inside.
Yeah, right.
It means you're actually looking inside.
It seems like you're looking inside, and it seems like
You're going to turn away because of the fear. You don't want to see what's on the other side. But if you're doing the Course in Miracles, and you do achieve a level of fear, you know that you've got a gatekeeper. You've encountered the gatekeeper.
Oh, right. Right now we do.
And now you can push through the gatekeeper.
Yes.
But without that fear, you're not even there.
Right. Well, that's true. Well, maybe we should go on. Let's see what else is
paragraph 2. Remember that the ego is not alone. Its rule is tempered, and its unknown enemy, whom it cannot even see, it fears. Loudly the ego tells you not to look inward. For if you do, your eyes will light on sin, and God will strike you blind. This you believe, and so you do not look. Yet this is not the ego's hidden fear, nor yours who deserve it. Loudly, indeed.
Nor yours who serve it.
Oh, okay. Yet this is not the ego's hidden fear, nor yours who serve it. Loudly, indeed, the ego claims it is, too loudly and too often. For underneath this constant shout and frantic proclamation, the ego is not certain it is so. Beneath your fear to look within because of sin is yet another fear, and one which makes the ego tremble. Now, I don't remember what the context was we were talking about last night, but once again, in the name, I just want to point this out. It's an overriding tool that I use in doing the Course in Miracles, is to avoid cognitive dissonance. In other words, I trust what the book is saying. If it says something I don't understand and I roll through it, I'm at the risk of being brainwashed, hypnotized, or just experiencing a disquiet that it's full of crap. And I want to avoid those things by understanding these things. So we're talking last night, and I said, why would I be afraid of looking within and not finding sin? And quickly the thought came, well, because then I don't have anything to project. In other words, the color,
Right.
what I consider the colors and diversity and nuance of the world goes away. And suddenly I don't have people that I'm better than or worse than. That goes away if I don't have
Right.
something filthy inside.
Right.
I have my scale of reference is gone. And so it's not just about me looking within and saying, wow, look at Phil, you're sinless. Aren't you terrified? No, that's not the deal. The way this is set up is I look within, I immediately make the leap and say, my world just went away.
Right.
The usual way I relate to other people of judgment and assessing myself in relationship has vanished. That's why I'm afraid of this so-called sinlessness.
I agree with that because, I mean, we value our judgments on ourselves and on the world. We value it as a form of understanding our world and others. And so,
I can't even be good.
right.
If I don't have that stuff, I can't even be a good person. That's the problem. It's not that I'm a bad person. I can't even be good because my goodness is established in reference to other people's crap, which is my projection
Right.
onto them.
Yeah.
So if I don't have anything to project onto someone else, suddenly I'm no better than they are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I thought about this, and that's that it makes the ego tremble. That if it actually looked within and actually could see the light, it can't. Because as soon as the light emerges, that is a reference to the truth of who you are, the ego vanishes. It goes away. It's gone. That's why it trembles. Because it is its annihilation.
It's its ending.
Yeah. That's why it won't let you look there.
Shadows vanish in light.
Yes, shadows vanish in light. Yeah, that's why it goes.
We'll explore that a little bit. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, well, the thing of it is
Put that in maybe in common experience or common parlance or whatever. What do you mean? I mean, what?
Well, just like
In interaction with a friend, somebody that you feel is a challenging relationship. How do shadows, this ego, tremble and then disappear in the light? What would that look like with another person or in another situation?
I only know it for myself. Let me see. So if I'm in relationship to another and I'm seeing shadows there, I'm judging them. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm just saying, if you're looking at another person and you're not having a holy instant, that means that you're in consort with the ego, and
Yeah.
that ego doesn't want to establish the inward view because it will be exposed, and you said annihilated.
Annihilated.
Can you explore that with any challenging situation you've ever had, to where you look at the person with condescension, with a glow of tolerance
Yeah.
that you have,
Right.
and that you go, wow, I'm experiencing a special relationship here, whether it's in hatred or with tolerance. I'm condescending,
Right.
And then suddenly I go, and then I go, well, I'm avoiding
Yes.
some inward view.
Yes.
So
what, to me, I can't think of a particular instance except for, a stranger, that stranger that I helped at the laundromat that day, where, I had all kinds of thoughts about who this person is knocking on my window who says, can you help me? I was like, oh, okay, what does he want and stuff like that. And then it turned out that I did help him. I've told this story before.
did you have a holy instant when you helped him out? He was very disheveled. He was like one of these people that
I
sort
did.
of like
I did have
soil themselves.
I did
type
have a
thing.
holy instant because when I finally took him back to his hotel room, which is, it was one of those smoking rooms down low in, one of those cheap hotels. And I was like, oh God, this is probably not a good idea. But I helped him fold his clothes and stuff. He's he's probably dying, to tell you the truth. He had some kind of intestinal cancer. But at any rate, so I found out his whole story. I helped him out. And, the holy instant happened when he grabbed my arms and he said, will you pray with me? And I was like, oh, this is not someone to fear. This person has so much fear about what's happened in his life, where he is and everything else.
What happened with you in that
In that moment,
shift.
I recognized that, well, this is a brother. This is a brother. And I've known my own times of fear like that, where you just are reaching. You're reaching like a last thing. It seems like, you're in a dark, dark hole and you're reaching out for light. And I recognized it there. And so I felt blessed to have the opportunity to pray for someone who I hardly knew. And I mean, I really didn't know him at all. So, so I felt like I actually felt light all day long after that. I felt like this was a teaching for me.
Well, let's examine that for 1 second, because I think that it's the nature of the miracle is an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. Because you can walk away and have, like Pablo Casal's, you can feel like you've got a weight of goodness within you that you carry around. But, you felt good, okay? You felt good after this experience. Mm-hmm. What do you decide about that? Was this an angel of light that was sent from the sonship?
It felt like it was an angel of light.
See, and that's where the miracle light connects.
Because, I was actually doing the course, and I forget what I asked that day, and for some reason, I did need to go to the laundromat. Don't usually have to, but I needed to that day. And so there it was. That was my opportunity.
The Holy Spirit drags you out of yourself.
Yeah, he did. It definitely dragged me out of myself. And I had to, each step of the way, I had to say, this is not something that I need to be afraid of. And because we get afraid around strangers. What do they really want? What do they really need? Dragged into the situation of going into the hotel that was not that great. It's like, okay, you feel, I felt vulnerable, even though he was extremely vulnerable. He was so vulnerable. So at any rate, because the world teaches us that, to not trust each other, to not trust a brother who's reaching out,
Well, so just in terms of the anatomy of the miracle, go ahead. You were going to say something.
So in the anatomy of the miracle, I recognized that truly, I recognized the call for love. I recognized it as like, wow, that was a call for love, and love responded through me. It responded. I didn't do anything except try to be there for him, and so it felt otherworldly. Actually, it just actually had that out of time, out of space kind of feeling. When I left, I recognized that it felt like the whole time the Holy Spirit led me through that whole thing. But in other times, I'm just going to switch from there to like that childhood experience and everything else. If someone could have shed some light on the truth of what really had happened with me and stuff like that, I would not have carried so much with me for years. So without light shining into the darkness of my own mind, of the things that I said about myself, of the things that I thought was wrong and everything else, without somebody shedding some light from somewhere else upon it, it stayed in the dark, and it stayed exactly where the ego wants it to be. Fearful, ashamed, guilty, whatever it is, it festers inside. And that's what it says is looking inside. That's what it calls looking inside. Oh yeah, go ahead and look. See what it is? Don't keep looking there. Better run away, But that isn't looking within. That is self-judgment. That's self-flagellation. That's all kinds of making up stuff in order to keep you afraid.
Well, okay, to put it in less, let's say, judgmental terms, like
Mm-hmm.
I have the option to look within and look for the light versus looking within and finding judgment.
Right.
The modus operandi, the way of living in this world is to find ways to compare myself to others.
Yes.
And so whether it's for better or for worse, in that case with you is the childhood experience, it was for worse.
Mm-hmm.
But you accumulate those experiences, and they are cherished experiences, whether they're negative or positive.
Well, that's true.
Because they
Yeah.
anchor you in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you can then become a repentant sinner. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, you can, you know,
Right.
you can finger beads, you can wear a scapular, you can flog yourself. You know, you can see yourself as a victim of life somehow. You can see yourself as an unworthy, you know, sort of a
Right.
waif or wraith in the world. And all of those are identities. And what's interesting about it is, you'd say a child doesn't decide to do that. You know, it's not like the child, you didn't decide to take that on.
No, it's just
But
instinctual.
it just happens. But the child that took it on then becomes the person who has a holy instant, a revelation at a laundromat,
Yes.
to where the accumulated dirt at a laundromat,
Yeah.
the accumulated dirt is washed.
Right.
In a sense. In other words, and you don't do it by, like, watch me do a good thing, I'm not as bad as I thought I was.
Right, no,
It
it's not
might
that way.
start there.
Yeah,
It might start there. This is why I'm saying the anatomy of the miracle. Watch this. I'm gonna do this good thing, and I'm better than I really thought I was. See, that's great. But then when the guy really just says, pray with me, like, then you realize I'm being pulled out of my conventional way of looking at anything. I'm being pulled away from any judgments. I'm being pulled away from the way that I have oriented myself in space. And now I'm out of time and space.
Right.
He dragged you
Right.
out of time and space. As when you feel a bullet go by your head, you probably
Right.
are dragged out of time and space.
Right.
There are different experiences like this that shock us out of this matrix of judgment and positioning. In that degree, he is literally a messenger of God,
Yes.
released from within you at a laundromat with the dirty laundry. You go and you help him. And so that when he comes back, and you've gone through the experience and you said, I felt, let's just say it, I felt holy
Yeah.
throughout the day.
Right.
You realize how at the laundromat, with a person who in a sense embodies the filth that you might think that you find.
Right.
And suddenly you go, wow, you know what? Despite all that filth, here's an angel of light. And that you get a chance to project onto it. Yes, I'm the angel of light. You know, and there's this confusion.
Right. Yeah, right. We became an angel of light for each other.
No, that's the beauty of
Right.
the miracle. And so it's also the mystery of this filth that we're talking about, that we're afraid to look at. At what point
Right.
does it become...
Well, it does say in other chapters that you must look at it. You must look at the things that you are afraid of, because if you don't look at them, you can't get past them. Those are those clouds that you need to move past, which allow for you to find the light that's beyond them. They're all just thoughts in our minds.
So are we on paragraph
Yes,
3?
paragraph 3. What if you looked within and saw no sin? This fearful question is one the ego never asks. And you who ask it now are threatening the ego's whole defensive system too seriously for it to bother to pretend it is your friend. Those who have joined their brothers have detached themselves from their belief that their identity lies in the ego. A holy relationship is one in which you join with what is part of you in truth, and your belief in sin has been already shaken, nor are you now entirely unwilling to look within and see it not. So, and your belief in sin has been already shaken. So that meaning not so sure that sin is the thing that I'm so afraid of, nor are you now entirely unwilling to look within and see it not. So it says it's carried you along in this dialogue now. We did, faith, belief, and vision in the last one. And it says, you can carry your faith with the ego and its world and thought system, or with the Holy Spirit and its thought system. And you will get what you believe and have faith in. So now, because you've worked both sides, where am I? If I put my faith in the Holy Spirit, you begin to have those holy instances, right? And if I put my faith in my ego, Well, I stay in various forms of tension, anxiety, fears, upsetness, and judgments. And so now we are taken to this place where it's saying, you're not so afraid that you won't look within. And so we can. The ego won't look there, but in a way it's saying that with my brothers now, I have not fully identified with the ego anymore. And it also says the holy relationship is one in which you join with what is part of you in truth. So in that instance, it happened to be with a stranger, but I joined with that which is with me in truth, which means what I feared, he fears in a different way. You know, our fears were both there, but somehow in that last moment of prayer, both our fears were allayed. And I went home in a joyous state of saying the Holy Spirit carried me through a beautiful experience of helping somebody. And this is not a brother. I should not prejudge my brothers as they, knock on my window and ask for help or whatever.
That intersection of experience at the laundromat is the only way that you would have that kind of interaction with that kind of person.
Right.
And so, like I was thinking when you were talking, I just got an image in my mind, so I'll say it is. When I was living in, let's say, as an example, Boulder, Colorado, surrounded by people who are aspirational. They're everyone seemed to be aspiring for something. Some, bike path, outdoor experience, intellectual high ground, spiritualistic high ground, financial achievement, self-understanding. There was all these aspirations. And so when I got together with a group of people, which, I tend to be hermit-like, I don't like to really mix with people that much. But when we did meet with people, I was bonding with them on that. That was my projection. The projection was this aspirational sense. Now, I went through some experiences. I'm turning this into a mythology or a metaphor. I went through some experiences in Bend, another place where it's just packed with aspirational people, in a sense, kind of. It's different than Boulder, but, would you agree?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that.
So in Bend, Oregon, where we met, in Bend, I became broken, and I've talked about that before in finances, in relationship, and
Right.
And I went through fears in several different areas, through some difficult. So I broke, I broke and then broke away from that thing. And my brother had this house in Abilene, so we moved in here. You and I came here to Abilene. I know. Like your guy at the laundromat, I never would have gone to Abilene, Kansas for nothing.
Right.
I mean, I like Kansas okay for some things, but that I needed, the brokenness got me here. The broken state, got me here.
Right.
And so when I got here, and when I say broken, it's not like I'm depressed or I'm in the fetal position.
No.
It's just I went through some nothing that looked like a victory whatsoever. I was in the trenches.
Definitely, I was there too for different reasons.
Right, for different reasons. We were both broken.
Yeah, we were both broken.
Let's get the shorthand.
Yeah.
And so I come to Abilene, Kansas, and here, almost from the beginning, immediately and from the beginning, the broken people around me were exposed as beautiful.
Right.
I mean, from all of them, all of them. And we were in my brother's house, down on sort of the south end of town, let's say, more or less, not south, in the middle. And,
right on the railroad tracks.
Yeah, he lived right on the railroad tracks, right next to some granaries.
Yes.
What's great about it is he goes, "You're going to love the peace and quiet." It's like, holy cow, he's not noticing that there's a train going by every 4 hours. It almost rattles the foundation of the house. And then it smells like burnt Wheaties all the time, because of the granary and the noise coming off the granary.
Yeah.
So it's quite noisy, and it had nothing that seemed like
I know, but on
peaceful.
Sundays it was all quiet.
Oh yeah, everything goes kind of dead.
And he was
right?
only home on the weekends.
Oh, that's right. So anyway.
I couldn't defend him.
Anyway, so
anyway.
when the reason I'm going through that, I said that for local color, but I saw the beauty inside of these broken people and broken situations, and realized that the broken state it enables this, not an introspection as much as that you then are willing to like project out. In other words, I'm surrounded in a large measure by people who have all experienced, they would know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. All of them. They're farmers, a lot
Yeah,
of them. Farmers and hard workers, and
Right.
they know what it is. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't feel like a conquering hero when you're working on water problems
Yeah, and
underneath the street.
there's not a lot of wealth here. I mean,
No.
So, I mean, there's a few families, and you know who they are.
Yeah, right.
By the kind of house they have and the kind of car they drive. But most of it is pretty, low to mid income.
Yeah,
Here.
and so, but being here in a typical group of people, when you run into them, or at least the ones I hang out with, you have a better crowd.
I don't know.
Yeah, you do. You've got a better crowd. Mine is not so great, but I experience a kind of a revelation, a beauty that, given this chapter in the Course in Miracles, I'm going to say is a blessing or a grace for me to be able to have the inward awareness that even though the brokenness is really a crack in the facade, and so that these people that I'm saying are broken really just have hard lives. It's not that they're
Yes,
busted; they
right.
just have hard
Yeah,
lives.
they do.
And
they're willing to just do almost anything for you, most of them. So,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, they're
oh
good people.
yeah, and they're and many times all accomplishing. We're not
Yeah.
talking about people
Yeah.
that can't do stuff. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, they know how to do stuff.
so anyway, but that whole situation here has allowed me to project the inner light I have. But some people have the option to project ignorance and difficulty onto these people. Their own inner, that dark shadow can be projected onto these communities.
Right.
And those people have to get the hell out of here as quickly as possible. They can't stand it. It's going to make them nuts.
Yeah.
We know a couple
Yes.
that do that.
Right. Yeah.
But if you can tolerate it and you see through it and see through it, you see the broken buildings, you see the history of the place, you see the people, and you see how the facades break. And that allows a different kind of light to come through that I never experienced in Boulder, certainly not in Bend,
Right. Right.
certainly not in Fort Lauderdale,
Yeah, I know.
but it's here.
I know. I'm sorry. I have to say, when we first got here, there's this woman who said, "Oh, there's this really great little like sort of bakery cafe downtown. We need to go there sometime." It was called Amanda's, and I'm thinking, "Oh, Amanda, it sounds like such a sweet." I'm thinking of a small sort of woman who, and she got ravings about her life here and stuff like that. She had started another restaurant. Oh, she's a really good cook and everything else.
So you have a picture in your
I
mind.
have a picture in my mind, and I was blown away. This woman is like 6'2", like a giant native Indian. She's got some native Indian, and she's huge. I mean, she's absolutely huge.
She was a shot put champion at
I know.
K-State.
I know. And I just, and the work, and the place where she needs to work in this little old building and everything else, she barely fits in any of it around the ovens and everything else, but she does a wonderful job. So, I mean, you have to throw away all of your judgments. She's a beautiful person.
Oh, she's like 275 pounds of dainty perfection.
I know. It's just like, how is that possible?
She was once hurling shot puts, and now she's hurling specialty
I know.
and little cupcakes.
And her kids are, it's like, no, he's not that old yet. I know, because she married a big man, and her kids would be like, I don't know, when they're like 18, like 8 months old, they look like they're a year and a half. It's like, no, he can't set up yet because he's only this old. Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, he looked like he was 5 years old.
Anyway, there's some more local color.
Okay, paragraph 4. Your liberation still is only partial, still limited and incomplete, yet born within you. Not wholly mad, you have been willing to look on much of your insanity and recognize its madness. Your faith is moving inward, past insanity, and on to reason. And what your reason tells you now, the ego would not hear. The Holy Spirit's purpose was accepted by the part of your mind the ego's knows not of. No more did you. No more did you. And yet this part, with which you now identify, is not afraid to look upon itself. It knows no sin. How otherwise could it have been willing to see the Holy Spirit's purpose as its own? Mm-hmm. Between the lines, I just want to point out and get your reaction. Between the lines, I hear that you have your willingness, but mm-hmm. you have not yet identified the thing that you have partnered with.
Right. I would
you
say
have the
so.
willingness, but
mm-hmm.
you are still,
mm-hmm.
as an egoic mm-hmm. shadow, I still don't have... It's not like I know that this is the Holy Spirit. It's not like it has a shape or a form. It's almost like I'm led blindly to desire or want or avoid, but I don't know why this is happening.
I would agree. That's why they call it the partial, that the liberation still is only partial, still limited and incomplete, yet born within you. So it's gestating now. The whole thing is starting to have a life. If you've been doing this, that's a start. So you can start to feel this otherness that is actually not other at all. That is the truth. So of course the ego is going to be afraid of that because it's, like I said, it's annihilation.
It's the beginning of the end, really. Yeah,
because the Holy Spirit and the ego cannot exist in the same room. I mean, you either have one or you have the other. So in those holy instances, the ego is, it pops away. I mean, it goes nowhere because it's not anything. But then the light dawns on your mind in those instances with others, with whatever is happening. And then, daily life dawns on us again, and we're in our ego body mindsets. But now it says that it, meaning the truth of who we are, knows no sin. How otherwise could it have been willing to see the Holy Spirit's purpose as its own? So those moments that you do, no, there is no sin there. It's been lying. We've been lied to. It says your faith is moving inward, past insanity and onto reason. So, like I said, the prior section was about who are you choosing to partner with? Your ego, where you can have faith and belief and vision.
Faith is a confidence in things unseen.
Right.
That's by
mm-hmm.
By definition, sort
mm-hmm.
of. And then belief, as I try to explore that in some of the show note, essay, is to say that belief is a distillation of the faith. In other words, I start with faith,
mm-hmm.
and then with faith I am reinforced into belief.
That's right.
And so, but at this point, it's saying that the faith and the belief still doesn't know what you're in partnership with.
Right. You just know that periodically you're uplifted inside, or there's these moments with others that the room kind of disappears and you feel like you're in this other space. And
well, if I go back to the conversation we had about the town that we're in, and people that have to flee versus people that find something mm-hmm. brilliant. Because I've experienced this as well. It's not like I'm solidly on one side of the tracks or the other.
Right.
I'm still, kind of like a Whole Foods, Starbucks kind of guy, let's say, right? Kind of.
Not Starbucks.
Well, I know, that's true. We don't never go to Starbucks.
Anyway.
In any case, the deal is that there are people, regardless of how old or young they are, who nurture and keep a sort of a perpetual flame, like the flame at JFK's tomb. It's like this constant memorial, this constant remembrance of who they wanted to be, who they could have been, who they should have been, mm-hmm. how it should have turned out, and how it still can turn out if they just make the right decisions. Mm-hmm. And for those people, they have to get away from here because there's nothing here that feeds those possibilities.
Right.
So they have to flee to another place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess what I'm saying it for is that nurturing a vision of who you can become or who you ought to be or who I should have been and whatever, mm-hmm. it actually acts as a goad to drag you around through, and it would be the ego keeping you away from experiencing the light of what is there right now.
Right.
And yet, having said that, it's a mystery of why the soul or the light or the Christ within seeks out experiences by nurturing that goad, and therefore that person is dragged like a firefly from one situation to another, and they don't know why, and they can't stop themselves.
Yeah, I did a bunch of that. I mean, and yeah, exactly. And the thing of it is that, I mean, if I was to look at all of it, I mean, I just hung around with a lot of people that call themselves seekers, and seekers have you recognize that something's not quite right with your world, and you keep thinking it's out there over there. If I could just find my people, if I could just find my people.
I know, yeah.
And then you think you find them, and then you find that everyone's kind of superficial, or we're all on the same boat. We don't really quite get it. But there is a seeking that seems to take us, I don't know how other people are who are listening, but that take us to different places and different experiences and everything else that you would not maybe have done otherwise. I don't regret it.
We drag ourselves around through different things.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, like Richard Freeman, the yoga teacher, said one time, what is the ego? The ego is that thing that drags you out of your house at 2 o'clock in the morning to find pizza.
Well, could be.
Okay.
Never did with me.
Paragraph 5.
Yeah. Again, as once it was. It has been waiting for the birth of freedom, the acceptance of release to come to you. And now you recognize that it was not the ego that joined the Holy Spirit's purpose. And so there must be something else. Think not that this is madness, for this your reason tells you, and it follows perfectly from what you have already learned.
I just want to throw there's a red flag in here that my cognition is not able to connect with this thing, this new light, this ancient light within. Cognition doesn't have much to do with it. That's much, much later. Long, long before that, reactions, intuitions, vague feelings are in partnership with this thing. And maybe not even any of that stuff. Maybe it's just the events around me are dictated that you will go here, you will go there. And so that you're suddenly in the hands of this other entity. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we think that I'm going for the spirit. I know what it looks like. It's, whatever. In Catholic terms, it's a bird with a halo. Or whatever. I've got it. I got it identified. I know the look. I know the look, and I'm going to follow that look like a hound dog. And you find out, no, you got no hound dog in this. There's no dog in this thing. There's something quiet that's beginning to resonate with the truth that's in all things. There's this truth in all things.
Right.
And there's this resonance that starts to emerge, but it's based on my willingness, even though my cognition is not effective in identifying it. I'm bringing it out because sometimes I'm assuming that this is somehow, once again, my ego co-opts the spiritual experience.
Yeah.
Like the ego, we know. You know good from bad.
Right.
I can tell what's a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
That's why I go to Starbucks.
And people who practice in the beginning, including myself, there's tendency that when phenomenological things happen, that, see, look what I did. I must have done something. I did this thing. No. The thing of it is that the I do nothing, what really happened is that by uniting or letting go, really basically letting go of my own thought system for just a little bit, other things happen.
Okay, take that guy. I'm going to use that as an opportunity to riff, is that you're at the laundromat. This guy shows up. Nothing in you would get in the phone book and look up, men that soil themselves at the laundromat, and you look it up and you were dragged into that experience. Now, after that experience happens, you could say to yourself, look what I did.
Yeah, exactly.
Aren't I so good?
Absolutely.
Like this.
Yeah, and you got to be real careful about
But
that.
instead, you say, okay, great, you delivered the goods. But why were you there in the first place?
Yeah.
What got you there?
No, it was definitely, I'd done the course enough that I didn't take that on. I said, no, well, I was led through that one, Holy Spirit. Thank you. I had a lot of gratitude. I had a lot of gratitude to have that opportunity. I really did. So, I mean,
But so many times, and
but
this
a
is
lot
the
of
problem,
times
is
it's easy to take those on as an ego.
I'm showing up as a teacher of the course.
That's
I've done
right.
this
Look
stuff.
what I've
I know
done
what's
this.
going
Yeah.
on. I'm a spiritual being, and now watch me respond to
Yeah.
the world around me.
Exactly.
Instead of recognizing, no, my friend, the cognitive mind, the understanding doesn't have much to do with this.
Right.
Your aesthetic sense doesn't have much to do with any of this.
Right. Right. That's true.
Paragraph 6. There is no inconsistency in what the Holy Spirit teaches. This is the reasoning of the sane. You have perceived the ego's madness and not been made afraid because you did not choose to share in it. At times it still deceives you. Yet in your saner moments, its ranting strikes no terror in your heart. For you have realized that all the gifts it would withdraw from you, in rage at your presumptuous wish to look within, you do not want. A few remaining trinkets still seem to shine and catch your eye, yet you would not sell heaven to have them. This is what pops up into my mind as soon as I read that. I'm back to the small town situation. I had a moment not long ago of this, how much sanity do you have, how much insanity? And a pall of I don't know, I could say sadness or some sort of melancholy came over me when I realized, we were talking with someone and I was explaining about Abilene. I was explaining about being here and my experience of being here and saying basically, if Joanna and I were not together, I don't know if it would have stuck. I mean, my brother's here. I might have helped him out with his house, but restless in search of that eternal flame of what I might have been would carry me on. But instead, through the revolving door of something, I meet Joanna during that period of where all this breakage is happening back in Bend. And it was breaking universally across the board. I mean, it's not like we had an affair and ran off together or something like that. It was really more like an earthquake was happening, and these are the only two people in the house.
Exactly.
So we grabbed each other and fled the house, kind of a thing. And so I come here, and it was a melancholy that came over me because I thought, I'm not doing this. I was led here. I was led to all that I said about the broken people and all that. I was led to this state by the broken situation, but only because Joanna comes in as an element in my world, in my consciousness. And so that in that sense, she's completely miraculous. It's a completely, where I get a chance, even though she's sitting here like this, and this is a special relationship. We're married, and there's all this kind of thing and all that. But also when I reflect on that, all that specialness goes away. And you're an apparition, you're an anomaly that has guided me through this circumstance so that I would be able...
And likewise.
I would be able to say these things that I'm saying. In other words, this isn't so great. I mean, what I'm saying is this isn't so great. This is just divine. This is just God. It's not so great. And
it's just divine. It's not so great.
Well, because great is on a scale of good and bad.
Oh, right. I see. Yeah.
This is just perfect.
Right. Yeah.
It's just not in time and space.
Right.
When I reflect on you in those terms, but most of the time we're in a special relationship. Who's taking out the garbage type thing. We have this special relationship.
Yeah.
But when I do reflect on that, and ironically, as I've said in other times, other places, it brings me first a kind of a melancholy. Because I go, wow, I'm not that great. I didn't do it. I don't know if I could do it. And then, then the question comes up as it says here. Okay, who did it?
Right, who did do
You
it?
didn't do it? Who did it? Now here you are.
Give credit where credit's due.
And you go,
and be grateful.
I was rescued.
Yeah,
Why were you
exactly.
rescued? I don't know. It was time? I don't know.
Right.
I don't remember what I did
Yeah. I don't
to
think-
get rescued.
I would say
in this
I would
sense.
say it was a call for love in your own way, and I did too. So, I mean, I would say that both of us had done enough work, and there's no way to know, but it was grace. It was grace that led us to each other, and a little town.
But what happens is, right,
say.
but when I realize that, when I realize it's grace, it brings me sadness because I do have a fairly large ego.
Mm-hmm.
And that ego goes, I didn't have anything to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm at risk. There's something guiding this life that puts that ego at risk.
Yeah.
And that's where the melancholy is.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, it's not just melancholy. It's a peaceful melancholy, and it's a grateful melancholy.
Right.
And I would say that where I am on the quote-unquote spiritual path, that's joy for me.
Right.
That's what, I don't jump up and down.
Yeah.
I go, oh, I see. I understand.
Right. Yeah. I agree. See, we not sell heaven to have those little shiny trinkets anymore. No, we're going to go on to paragraph 7. And now the ego is afraid, yet what it hears in terror, the other part hears as the sweetest music, the song it longed to hear since first the ego came into your mind. The ego's weakness is its strength. The song of freedom, which sings the praises of another world, brings to it hope of peace. For it remembers heaven, and now it sees that heaven has come to earth at last, from which the ego's rule has kept it out so long. Heaven has come because it found a home in your relationship on earth. And earth can hold no longer what has been given heaven as its own. So, let that ego be afraid. That's basically what I hear. Just let it be afraid. So what?
Well, you can hear, I kind of...
Because once you begin to remember heaven or those moments, I mean, do you want the world of terror and suffering and death and everything else?
No, okay, but nobody does.
No.
Nobody does. But what you do want is a world where you can accomplish things.
Right.
You want a world where you can save yourself. You want a world where
your judgments matter.
Yeah, where my judgments matter and my good judgment and my intellectuality and my awarenesses are my gift and my strength.
Right.
And it's saying here that the weakness of the ego is the strength of this other one.
Right.
So what is the weakness of the ego? What would you say is the weakness of the ego? Now, we fill in the blanks, ego being that eternal flame that I carry that carries me from situation to situation, the sense that I can be good enough to help others that are less well off than I am. That's ego. So
Yeah, well, the weakness of the ego is what it thinks is its strength, and that's that it's right about its judgments upon itself and the world. And so when confronted with the light, it just has no strength at all. It has none. It's basically the Wizard of Oz,
but the
behind the curtain, booming across the.
I know, but the very weakness, it's saying here that the very weakness of the ego is really what activates this other, call it spirit, call it Holy Spirit, call it the Christ within. It activates the weakness of the ego. We go back to the broken people thing. When the ego...
Well, in a way, it can't scare you off from actually looking within. Once you get past that, I'm going to go. I'm going to keep going. Whatever. I'm not going to be afraid of this.
Afraid of what?
Afraid of looking within, which looking upon what he calls it, the ego calls my sins. I'm not going to be afraid of looking on it. I'm going to go straight for it and see what happens. And so when you start to do that, and you say, I don't know, maybe it's lying to me. Maybe all these things I've told about myself or I made up about others and everything else, maybe it's a lie. As soon as you say, maybe it's not what I think it is, the ego's weak because it's like, I need you to be afraid so that you don't look, that you don't go any further. I need you to be afraid. And so that's his weakness.
Well, okay, but again, with the Course in Miracles, like the language you're using and the language that the Course is using, you're using the exact same language as the Course.
Okay. You explain that.
It strands me.
Okay.
I'm stranded. I go, well, that's, like I said early on, I'm not really afraid to look within. It's more like boredom. Or, it's like close your eyes. What do you see? This red-black thing. None of that really lands with me. None of that stuff lands.
So what do you think the ego's weakness is then?
I think that the ego's weakness is, I don't know, I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
The
Well, keep
ego's
thinking.
weakness.
We can always cut it out.
Yeah. Okay, so you're talking about, I don't want to look within. And the Course here is saying that the ego's weakness is the strength of the other. It's almost as though they have twins, and that they are sort of like twins, and that one is related to the other. When the ego meets its edges, then the spirit within, the Christ within, can take over, can move in. And that the ego is terrified. And you're saying, I'll say to myself, I'm not terrified. Okay, this is my thought, was that the beauty of A Course in Miracles, and I think it's a true genius. Let's talk about looking within, because that's the terminology used throughout this whole thing. You say, well, looking within is when you get your chin mudra and you sit in a half lotus and you just, kind of om like this, and you go within. In quiet, you go within. Or is it when you deal with someone at a laundromat and that you have a kind of a breakage of who you thought you were, and that really, in other words, sometimes, let's say before you go on a trip, you have a map, and that map spells out, okay, well, I'm going to go down this interstate, I'm going to make a left or right, I'm going to do all this stuff, and you look for landmarks and stuff on this map. Well, we have a map, a blessed, wonderful gift, grace map of somebody at a laundromat, somebody in the basement over at the church, these people here, this whole world, the world around me is a map. And that when I want to journey into the self, and the Course is saying, when you feel that weakness of the ego, when there's a breakdown, when there is that breakage and that breaking up of things, difficulties, misunderstandings, all these kinds of things where you realize, I'm getting off the map. This isn't, my map, my egoic map isn't working.
Right. Well,
So another map kicks in. It's
Right.
like the reverse map. And so that when this guy appears to you at the laundromat, you don't say, boom, of course, I've been going to church, I sing in the choir, and look at the way I respond at the laundromat. Just another saint is born. That kind of thing. You don't go there. You don't go there, even though some people can and do. And it creates a wall around them, a wall of goodness or
Right,
something.
right.
But for some reason, that blessing comes through you, and that's what I'm saying, is this sonship. It's talking about going within, going within, going within. This is my point, going within. That going within, I would say, is first indicated in what looks like a without situation. And that can drive us in. I had this conversation with
Right.
my son. In Buddhist terms, you get on the cushion and you go within, so that you can handle life's circumstances with equanimity. And I argued that the Course in Miracles takes an opposite tack of you live your life and you experience things and then take it back to your inner sanctum and figure it out as a gesture of the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. And you can't figure it out without the Holy Spirit.
It has to be that. So that in your case, if you had figured it out, you could say, I show up, I do this great stuff because I'm a good person. You could do that, but you did not. Something, the Christ within, brings you some other relationship, and that leads to a sense of holiness that goes through the day. And even now, you could go back into that map moment in your inner sanctum, relive it, and and try to identify what spirit is doing in your life. Laundromat, bum, cancer, dying.
Right.
How is that me? What nuance is in there that I can mine from my inner experience? They talk about it in yoga. You need objects of meditation. And the Course in Miracles is saying the sonship is potentially that blessed object of meditation, and the Holy Spirit's feeding these to you like this. Does that make sense, or is that, am I like all over the place?
I can see that, but I don't want to try and analyze it all right now.
Well, don't analyze it, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Am I just confusing?
Well, you're saying that each of those things were a potential revelation. The only revelation I had is that this is a brother. This is a brother, not an other. This is not other. This is something that is me, not necessarily the cancer, the soil, and everything else, but that all things are washed pure once the light dawns on the mind. All of that is just flotsam and jetsam. It doesn't matter that, I'm helping them fold soiled underwear. It doesn't matter. Any of that is just gone. It's as if it has a nothingness laid upon it because it's washed clean in my mind. He's not other. He's brother. In that moment of holding hands and stuff and praying, he's not other. He's my brother. And so I recognize that. I mean, it's almost like I can actually experience what he is, and not have it be any form of repulsion or anything else is washed clean. There is no judgment upon the situation.
Part of what I'm saying about this
To me that moment where you're given, earth can no longer hold can hold no longer what has been given heaven as its own, is that moment where there's a suspension, because what I thought was going to be a potential scary situation is washed. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. It's not there. Because, as I said, he's not other. He's my brother.
Part of what I'm saying is I understand all that. I really, really do understand all that. My point is saying this. When it's revealed that this is spirit at work,
yes,
we are no longer in the time-space
That's
matrix.
right.
It's
We're
gone,
not.
okay?
Right.
Now, when it's gone, does that mean that it happened a year or two ago? No, it's happening now.
Oh.
It happens whenever you sit and whenever you recall it to mind. It is happening. It's a gift of spirit. It appears out of the time and space. It's an object for meditation. If you want to
I see.
If you want to understand the way spirit works in your life, all I have to do is go probe the externals of memory, of judgment, of, meeting you. As I just said, as I said earlier, I can go into that and it's like, okay, well, I think Joanna's great. Okay? I think she's great. She's got this certain kind of personality. I like the way she looks. I like the things she does. We get along really, really well. All that kind of great stuff. Special relationship. That's all it is. Special relationship. Anchored in the special relationship.
Yeah, I understand.
We have no choice.
Yeah, exactly.
We have no choice.
A couple of bodies get together.
Right. Now, when I go back and recognize, and I see myself in a darkened living room watching, the Mahabharatas, Peter Brooks, my money is on the rocks, my marriage is on the rocks, my kids are gone, I'm in a house that costs too much, I'm draining, out of the wrists. Money is just flying away, and there's nothing I can do to stop any of this, and I'm searching for something. When I go back to that situation, that preparation, that plowing of the Holy Spirit, taking one of those, old, Indian plows, the big, horn on it, and the ox is dragging it, breaking me up. Okay, breaking me up
To create fertile soil.
Right, and then in that situation, in all the wonderful situations, and there's only about 4, 5, 10 dozen details that I could bring into this subtle object of meditation. Joanna comes in as a presence, as a guide, as a light, as an anchor. What? To make me happy, to have a good relationship, as a reward because I went through all that stuff? No. Simply to carry me into the next part of my life. Without her, I would not have been able to do that. These are objects of meditation. At that point, that, Joanna, is out of the time-space matrix.
Right.
You exist as something beyond this. You exist beyond the person who gets her face ready for the podcast and does his stuff.
You're
right? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
That overlay is there, and when I go into that situation and dive in and sink in to the situation, not within. I go back to that situation, which was an external. But by going there, revelation happens.
I know.
I see
because
that
it's
there's
a memory
a
now,
resonance.
so it is a within, isn't it?
I know, but it's not a within if you're just reminiscing.
Oh, right. That's true.
If it's simple reminiscing, you don't get the within that it's talking about, the sense of holiness. Because what happens to me is I lost my money because I'm a moron. The relationship went away because of bad choices. My kids are gone because I'm being punished. I'm in a house that is too cold and I don't want to be here, and the real estate value of everything is tanked, and everything's a bummer. Everything's a bummer. So that's the setup. That's the setup. Now, within that setup, it's not like I meet you and a shaft of light comes in. No, there were other things. I won't go into it. Of making decisions within myself.
Right.
Making decisions within myself long before I met you. So, but you come in to that circumstance to be the necessary agent. Now that part of you, I can say, well, Joanna was needy. She was on the, she had nowhere to go. So I'm like the only thing around. I can say that, but no, ladies and gentlemen, that's not what happened. What happened is I need to, now it's up to her to figure this out for herself. But for me, I needed
Felt
to.
like a conjunction of planets.
Yeah, I needed to be led.
Catch it while I can.
I needed to be led into these inner spaces because I had made the request. And there's only one way in this external world that I can get there, is if someone acts as an agent. And who is she acting as an agent of? Holy Spirit. You are the agency of the Holy Spirit in that. And so when I go back to those moments, this is what happens. I go, wow, all undeserving. I don't deserve any of that. I could not have arranged it. I could not have perceived how this stuff should come together in pieces. Nothing I did, quote unquote, deserved to be delivered or redeemed or resurrected. Nothing I did deserve that. So why did it happen? So that we can do this podcast.
There.
So
That's
that we can
right.
save the world.
That's right. So we can save the world.
No, you
I
understand
agree.
what I'm saying?
I absolutely agree. Yes.
But
I'm not being facetious.
when I go
agree.
into it, when
Yeah.
I go into that situation, I'm led to the within that this whole chapter is talking about. I'm led to that within where I see,
No,
to
I
be
can-
honest with you,
can
I don't
feel it.
see goodness there. I'll be honest with you. I don't see any goodness there. I see all undeserving. I see all undeserving. But you know what? The Course is saying, get over it, Phil.
Yeah.
Get past that all undeserving bit. That's a remnant of ego. False humility. Take on the real humility. You friggin' are the Christ within,
season.
and there's a resonance.
To fall on your knees.
Yeah. On your knees, knees.
That's right.
Okay.
All right.
Paragraph 8. Did I already read it?
No.
Look gently on your brother, and remember the ego's weakness is revealed in both your sight. What it would keep apart has met and joined, and looks upon the ego unafraid. Little child, innocent of sin, follow in gladness the way to certainty. Be not held back by fear's insane insistence that sureness lies in doubt. This has no meaning. What matters it to you how loudly it is proclaimed? The senseless is not made meaningful by repetition and by clamor. The quiet way is open. Follow it happily and question not what must be so. In the Course in Miracles terminology, I hear it echoing or saying exactly what I just got through saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're gonna look.
I don't know what's happening. Mm-hmm. I don't know where this is going. I don't know why it happens such. Mm-hmm. But quit. It says, get over it. Mm-hmm. Get over it. You know, this is
little child, innocent of sin. Follow in gladness the way to certainty.
And where are you starting from? Uncertainty.
Yes.
The way to certainty. And, you know, so if I look within myself, using the example that I gave of Joanna and I getting together, and I say, oh, Phil, you know, it's like, you know, because I've got remnants of, you know, 13-year-old, 15-year-old person, you know, adolescent angst about who I am, what I am, my value to the opposite sex, or whatever I've got going, insecurities, you know, it's all there. And so all of those are, they've called it in other places, shadows of some sort that I lay on my experience. I lay those shadows on my experience. And then I can say, we're past that, okay? That don't, you know, because of this situation I'm in, it proves out, in a sense, that I'm beyond the adolescent doubts. I'm beyond that. Let that rest. They're not serving your history anymore. Right. Your adolescent doubts about what you deserve or what you don't deserve or how you end up in what situation. That's not the important thing. The important thing is to find this Christ within. That's what it's for.
Right. Yeah.
And in order to find that within, I've got to quit worshiping adolescent doubts or feelings of like inferiority because everything is collapsing around me in Bend, Oregon, whatever. Get over it. Get over it. That was all a sureness of going forward and meeting the Christ within. The goal here is to find this surety.
Yes, it is. Right. Leave insanity. Find your sanity. Leave uncertainty. Find that certainty. Yeah. And it says the quiet way is open. Follow it happily and question not what must be so that you can know who and what you are. And get out there and be a light. That's what I say.
And we'll do it because you said it.
Hey, I don't know. Anything else? You can cancel all of this if you want.
I'll probably keep it. You know why? It'll humble us. We'll be broken people. Broken podcasters finding the Christ within. Okay, good enough.
Good enough.
Feel broken enough?
No. Embarrassed.
Okay, good enough.
Good enough.
Thanks.
Thank you.